Hello, my name is Garth Armit. I'm a program specialist with the End SELPA, and welcome to our training on tips for parents for online learning. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at our End SELPA mission statement. End SELPA is an agency that provides supports to parents and school districts of students with special needs. Today, we're going to take a look at something that's called accommodations. You might remember accommodations from your child's IEP. Basically, accommodations are strategies that help your child to access and complete their work or tasks that they're doing at the time. There are many types of accommodations that you can provide to your child, but for today, we're going to take a look at just a few of these that might be easy for you to implement in the home during this time of distance learning. The first one we're going to take a look at is quantity. It's probably about the easiest accommodation that you can implement with your child during this distance learning time. What we're talking about here is altering the number or the amount of an activity or a task that a child has to complete in a given period of time. A couple of quick examples. For instance, if your child has to identify colors, instead of trying to have them identify 5 at one time, maybe you can limit the number to just 3. Or if they're required to copy their name 3 times, maybe you can limit it to maybe just 2. If your child is doing math work and they're required to complete a math worksheet of 10 or 12 problems at one time, and they're finding it difficult to do that, you can negotiate with them and limit the number to a lesser amount, maybe 5 or 6. Whatever you do in terms of the quantity or the amount of work that your child is having to do at that particular time, altering that, reducing the amount, usually makes the task more manageable for your child and easier for them to complete. And you're more likely to get compliance from them as they go through the task. The next accommodation we're going to take a look at is time. It kind of goes along hand in hand with quantity in terms of how you implement it. But we're going to go the other way this time. Instead of reducing the amount of time that you allow your child to complete a task, typically with this accommodation, you tend to increase it. So the extra time allowed to your child to complete a task takes that kind of pressure off them, that feeling that they have to get something done and the clock is ticking. And it helps reduce that frustration or anxiety that they may feel when they have to complete a task in a limited amount of time. So basically what you're going to try and do here is you give the child the task and then you give them a time period to complete it in. If they're struggling with it, then you can, again, talk to them about maybe increasing the amount of time that's available to them to complete that task. And thereby they feel like they can manage it, their frustration level and anxiety levels go down, and they're more likely to stick to the task and get it done. Again, here's a few tips in this slide about how that may be implemented and what it might look like. One of the ways of demonstrating the amount of time that you're allotting to your child to complete a task is using such things as timers, turning a timer on, saying this is the amount of time you have, or you can show them on a kind of a homemade visual that they have this amount of time to complete the task. This way they get an idea of what that looks like, particularly if they have trouble understanding the concept of time and what that means. Our third accommodation that we're going to look at today are breaks. As adults, we all know that we need a break when we're doing work. We all have that, most of us have that option in our employment. When we feel like we've kind of reached a point where we need a rest, we're able to take a break, even if it's only for a few minutes. That gives us a chance to kind of take a step back, catch our breath, and then regroup, and then come back to our work. Well, of course, our children do too. And they need that time to kind of take a breather and catch their breath before they reapply themselves to the task. As a parent, when you're doing distance learning at home, you can build that in, those breaks, into that task during the time period that you've set aside for it. And these breaks can take the form in probably two different ways. One are movement breaks or structure breaks. And we're going to take a look at those right now. Movement breaks are where obviously it's kind of self-evident, I think, that you can get up and you can move around. Physical movement is good for all of us in many ways. Kind of gets our muscles loosened up and gets the blood flowing, and able to stretch our legs, and just it gives us a chance to kind of feel a little bit better. And for young children or children and teenagers, there's that need to get up and move a lot more for them sometimes than there is for adults. So building a break into their task or their workday is really helpful, again, in reducing their kind of, their anxiety or their frustration, or just that need to kind of get away from the task for a few minutes. Now, you can set up a movement break by maybe taking them outside the backyard, or just doing some things inside your house or your apartment, catching a ball, or just doing jumping jacks, anything that comes to mind that you feel is a good activity for them to do and is doable in the situation that you're in. The other kind of break that we're looking at here is what they call a structured break. Structured break is used in the school environments on a regular basis to give the child that relief from a task and when their concentration is starting to wane. And it's not just allowing the child to go off and do whatever they like to do, it's giving them a certain amount of time or a set time frame to have a break, but they have to select an activity or something to do that's meaningful during that time. So you talk to your child maybe before they take a break or at the beginning of their day about taking a structured break and setting it up so they choose what they might like to do when they get their structured break. Maybe it's a puzzle, maybe it's going on the computer, maybe it's watching a little bit of TV, maybe it's playing with the dog, whatever it might be, something that they choose that keeps them kind of engaged and but takes them away from the tasks, the schoolwork that they've had to do for whatever period of time beforehand. And again, you can set the timer, give them a visual kind of tool to understand how much time they have during this break, and then they have to return to the task at the end of it. Now, getting them back from that kind of break sometimes is difficult, but you can provide an incentive to them to come back to the task, which is usually not that very preferred, but give them that incentive to come back, or a reinforcer, when they do come back, such as a token that they can use to exchange for something that they really like after all of their work is done. And there's a slide there just explaining a little bit more what that might look like. And a couple of more examples. I think I may have already covered these. So basically the reinforcer is when they do come back, you give them praise. Thank you for returning to the task. I really appreciate that. And then maybe something more tangible that they can get after all of their work is done. So you say you came back from the break when I asked you to, and you can, when we're all finished here today, you can choose whatever you like to do after all of your work is finished. It's usually very motivating for children to have that option on the other side of their work, just like it is for all of us. Okay, our next accommodation, or what we refer to as choices. Sometimes your child, again, will become frustrated or bored with the work that they're doing. It's natural. We all tend to experience those feelings at times. When this happens, you can offer your child a choice of what work they would like to do. So if they're doing math work, for instance, and they start to become a little frustrated with that or bored with it, you notice they're slowing down, they're daydreaming, they're just not getting anything done, you can discuss with them what problem is. And if they explain to you, this is really boring to me, I'm getting tired of it, you can offer them a choice of what they want to do at that particular time. And it may be you can finish this math work, or would you like to do your reading now? Or maybe even a third choice. But you don't want to give them too many choices in what it might be. And you want to be able to set the options or the choices for them. So, of course, they don't choose something that is completely, out of the arena of schoolwork. But by giving your child a choice during your distance learning at home, or their in-home learning during this time of when the schools are out, it gives them a feeling that they are somewhat in control of the tasks and their work day. And when you have that feeling that you do have some control or some influence over what you do, you tend to be more motivated and focused when you have that feeling. And it's the same for our children. So those are a few accommodations that you can provide, implement in-home while schools are out. And most of them are pretty easy to do. And you can, put some of your own kinds of particular kinds of perspectives on them and adjust them to the situation that you're in with your children at home. If you have any questions or would like more information on accommodations, you can reach out to me. There is my email address. Send me an email, and I'd be more than happy to discuss those strategies with you and give you some more ideas as to how you can implement them. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I wish you the best. Take care. Bye-bye.